So thank you very much. I am calling the WSESD meeting to order. It is 6:04, and the meeting of the WSESD will come to order. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, which means that some or all of the public body is meeting remotely and some are meeting physically in a previously noticed location where the public may attend to observe, listen, and participate contemporaneously. Please note that while we will strive to provide means for those attending remotely to participate in the public comment period, there may be technical difficulties or reasons that otherwise prevent or interrupt remote public participation. If a member of the public has technical difficulties, please alert us via email. In the event that a technical difficulty cannot be corrected, this meeting will continue. Thank you. So, let's begin with student issues, please. Are there any students online who have any questions or comments? Again, I'm going to ask, are there any students online with comments or questions for this board? Please indicate by raising your hand or speaking. All right, I do not see any response from anyone at this point. So just be aware that we will have public comment on non-agenda items later on in the evening. So we are up to point number 3, board matters. I would just like to acknowledge that I have rearranged this agenda so that board matters have moved up. Instead of being at the very end of the agenda, it seems to me that this is a board meeting, and it seems to me that we should be immediately addressing board business, especially when that discussion may trickle down into other aspects of this meeting. So we're going to try this out. Let's keep in mind, as we begin discussions on a variety of issues, let's keep in mind some meeting norms. We've talked about them as a board, and whether we've all been together when we've had this conversation or not, meeting norms are pretty straightforward. Watch your amount of airtime, being considerate of other voices, be sensitive, realize that the impact of what you're saying is the key issue, not your intention. So I'm sort of rattling through some of the meeting norms that exist. I'd like to keep comments to a 2-minute time frame. And my view is if it's a 2-minute time frame, then I'd like a warning to be sounded at 1.5 minutes so that you know to begin to move your comment along and wrap it up. So, Sean?
Yes, thank you. I was trying to find a little bell, which I used to have, but I brought a picture. That'll be 1.5 minutes.
Okay, is that a ping pong thingamajig or is it a golf thingamajig?
Oh, it's big.
It's ping pong. She's hopeless. I am hopeless, yes.
From this far away, I can understand.
All right, so, let's begin with Leadership Council updates. Comments? Having to do with Leadership Councils?
Jody has a hand up.
Jody has her hand up. Jody, thank you. Hi, Jody. And so as everyone speaks in coming off of Zoom, please indicate who you are, and that goes for who we are in this space as well. Who you are by name as well as by town. So Jody, the board recognizes you. I saw a hand up. All right, you'll,
I can give an update while we're waiting for.
that would be great. Thank you, Mark.
We are scheduling another orientation for Leadership Council chairs. And right now, an email has been sent out and hoping to confirm a date and time for next week. But it looks like a week from today is a strong candidate for holding that orientation at central office.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I thought I was unmuted, but I think I'm unmuted now.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. I read from Jody Normandeau from Dummerston. And because I'm from Dummerston, I read the minutes, etc., from the Leadership Council of Dummerston. And the March 14th meeting, which was over a week after town meeting, they were still discussing the mistake in the ballot, which had been already taken care of. The person that complained about it had talked to the town clerk. They very well knew that the town clerk had talked to the Secretary of State, and everything was taken care of. And there was a lot of things that happened at town meeting for voting that everybody knew, because there were two pieces of pink paper in every voting booth, and there was pink paper in the entry booth, and everybody knew that it was a mistake, and they were to vote for up to two. And even Rich Levy, who was running for that office, spoke to our town clerk, and he and she had a great conversation. And I thought it was settled, but it seems to be still coming up. So I really wish I'm assuming, I don't know who's the Leadership Council from the board right now person. I know it was Deborah before. I really wish this would be taken care of and not continued to be discussed. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, Jody.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
regarding the orientation for LC chairs, at a previous meeting, I suggested that board members be there. I think it was Ruby who said that that would be just too much. So I'm wondering if a compromise, if it would be helpful, since the purpose of LCs is to further communication between the board and the school communities, whether it would be helpful if one or two board members attended the orientation. I guess that's a question for you, Mark.
For me, yeah, that's not how the invitation went out, based on the conversation at the last board meeting. But I'm open to thoughts from anyone. It'll be an open meeting for LC chairs, and other LC folks can certainly join.
Yeah, I don't want to crash a party, but if it would be helpful.
So with that in mind, Mark, do you feel that LC chairs and other individuals who'll be attending this summit, for want of a better word, will that be welcome to have board members present?
I can't imagine they would be unwelcomed.
Okay, all right. So then that takes care of that. So you'll send us an email and let us know when that meeting is taking place.
Well, when is it, you just said?
I said it won't be unwelcomed.
No, when is the date?
Tentatively, it looks like next Tuesday night. But we're waiting to confirm on all the responses.
Okay.
Ruby?
I guess I continue to feel that although we might not be unwelcome, creating a space that perhaps doesn't have board involvement would be valuable. I would just encourage Mark to send out a feeler email to the chairs, particularly to say this is what's been requested or proposed, or there may be some board members who would be interested in joining. If that's helpful, what do you think? Just if there's a strong response, I think honoring that in this year is a good idea, but if there's a reason to move forward, like if there's a desire for a joint meeting, rather than springing it on and having it be a collaborative move, feels more appropriate to me.
I think that's a good compromise. And I think when a group has a history of meeting together as a group, and you're about to add a new element to that, I would think you just want to check in with that group first. And that would be an email going out to see how people feel about it.
Well, the history is a very short one.
Long in my estimation. Okay.
Happy to do that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. If there is nothing else coming from leadership councils, and stop me if I'm wrong. Matt Shigley.
Just say I appreciated Kate's presentation and the Green Street Leadership Council on both the panorama data and the discussion about the 2%. I found it to be really open and informative and collaborative, so thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other comments having to do with leadership councils, let's move on to board subcommittees. Sean.
Yeah, the Finance Committee met this afternoon at 5 o'clock, and Frank gave an overview of the capital plan, and it's quite involved, but it's such a long-term undertaking and carefully orchestrated to make sure that all the infrastructure in the whole district is done in a very timely manner. So it was really informative and interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim.
And it's something that Frank's already presented to the board as well, so it's not as if it's something new, it's something that when we've done the fiscal, so it's not something that people that didn't attend missed. There's nothing new's been added.
Great. Anything else coming from board subcommittees? Okay, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is end of year appreciation. And this is, what we're talking about here is the appreciation that comes from the board to teachers, to staff, to every school, to every site. And this would be the third year that I'm aware that we've been doing it. 2 years ago we did it, and it moved very smoothly in terms of the date and just the mechanics of the day. Last year was a little different. I think we had some trouble finding a date when schools were not inundated with platters of food coming in. So there was that issue going on. So it is for the board to decide how we want to handle this. I know it's only April, but it is, as a teacher in the trenches, it's countdown time. You know the end of the year is rolling along. So I would like to think about how we want to acknowledge everyone who works in this district. Sean.
I'm glad you brought this up, and I think it is really timely. As you know, in the past, what we've done is made food available for all the staff, and it is a significant expense. And in addition to that, there are other expenses at the termination of the school year. So I would be in favor. I think it's great to send food, but I think also, in some respects, if there could be a personal contact for all 400 and some people, I don't know exactly how that would be implemented, that could suffice as a really heartfelt thank you for all the incredible work that you've done during the incident of the previous year.
So I appreciate what you're saying. Something that's personal to staff, some kind of a premium. But premiums are expensive, and premiums tend to, unless it's cookies, tends to not be significant. How much did we spend last year?
Last year, we spent $6,132 to thank 705 staff members.
And that amounts to, per person,
About
about
$9.
$9, right?
And there's also the time factor. Last year it was myself and Ruby and Robin. And, you know, it takes time to collect the cookies, fruit platters, and deliver them all over town. So there's that. And then there's also the question of, yeah, we really appreciate the staff. But as Sean just pointed out, in this year of austerity, I hope, do we want to spend the money or write a nice thank you letter or send a bouquet to each school? There's different possibilities. And whatever we do, which board members would like to step up to handle the logistics?
Eva, thank you.
I'm glad that this topic has been brought up. So last year, it was sort of a different business structure. Some people were open for business. That has shifted. The cost of food has gone significantly up. One thing that I did notice with all the schools is they all have Dummerston. I'll use Dummerston as an example. They needed something around, I think, and I'm just guesstimating, I think it was around $1,700 to do a summer camp for kids that wanted to go outside of the district. And they were able to not only go to community cares, but also the town of Dummerston was able to look into funds to get some of that extra funds so kids could go to camps such as the Green Mountain camp, things, and it was interesting because when I was at the Leadership Council, we were given that information, and the towns all got together and was really able to get it was not $1,700 around. That's not that much money. So I think that looking at the cookies, I think since all of the schools do have this that I know of, especially the summer camp also provides this opportunities for some of the poorest kids in the district that would never have the ability to go to these outside summer camps outside of our school district. I would like to use the cookies to fund that summer camp program for all the schools, and then do something nice where we do flowers, maybe a card. I think that given the situation that we are in and how vicarious it is, having that funds go closer to the students would mean a lot.
Ruby, yes. Ruby.
I agree with everything everyone said. I think that given the conversations we just had at the annual meeting, it is a good year to kind of pull back on the end of year spending. I know within my experience at Putney Central School, we recently, the PTO there that I'm part of, had a process by which we gathered appreciation from parents for each staff person. And this isn't really feasible across the whole district, but I wonder if we had a few people who could put their heads together to think about how do we express gratitude for a school or a site, because there may be ways, there may be reaching out to the town to see how they interact with the town, and reaching out to the administrator or central office to get a few words of what we appreciate about that, the people in that building, and what they mean to the people, to the board and to the district as a whole. And those words, I think, can have an impact. They don't have quite the same, but there'll be people who walk into a break room and see cookies and are like, oh, cookies, but would love to read some kind words that brighten their day. And so from my perspective, this is the year to think creatively along those lines. And if someone were to look at that and think, well, they cheaped out, I think we did, because we're tightening our belts. That was what we were charged to do. And so that's my thinking on it. And I appreciate that it's being brought up now so that we don't have to hem and haw about it right at the end of the year.
Just really quick, last year, what I recall really appreciating it, but it was, there were so many cookies. You could probably cut your expense in half at, it was just so many cookies for our building and it was a lot. So you definitely didn't cheap out last year.
Would anybody like a cookie?
I did, yes.
I'm thinking back to many years ago when board members actually came to our staff meetings just once a year and made a statement, and it really had an impact.
Deb, I was thinking along the same lines. It's free. And it, I think, has more meaning and value when oftentimes, for various reasons, you aren't seen in our schools, and to make an effort, whether it's in the morning first thing, to greet them and say hello and say thank you would go a long way and have more of an impact than flowers or cookies. And maybe it's by leadership representative.
I think that's an excellent idea. It perhaps is not possible universally because there are many people on this board who work full-time or who have childcare arrangements. So I think we have to be careful with the assumption that everyone can manage a school schedule. And staff meetings are gonna happen in the middle of the day. So this is April 9th. Do we want to take a pause on this, ask a couple of board members to maybe speak to Mark, speak to some other people to collect some ideas about what we can do?
Question,
Tim.
I really like Eva's idea of saving money, acknowledging the students, and also doing something for the kids who can't afford summer camp. I mean, if I were a teacher, I would really appreciate that. I'm just wondering if there's any further reaction to that proposal at this time.
I have a reaction to it, and I remember something that Ruby said at the end of the year, and I think she was querying Hannah Parker. No, maybe not, but it was about the summer school program, and it was about summer camp, and you were asking about the wait list, and how quickly does someone, how does someone enroll in this program? It might be that we want to enhance what we're doing in-house rather than going outside. We run a lot of summer programs through our schools, don't we? So I don't think we can solve this problem sitting here right now. It may be that if a few people could meet with administrators casually, one-on-one, and provide an update for the next board meeting on April 30th. I'm going to call on you in a minute. I just want that to settle, just to see what the reaction is across the space. Eva.
I just wanted to acknowledge Julie. So within that conversation with summer camps, I would love to maybe hear from the principals and hear their input about how it would best serve their school. So
That is exactly what I'm proposing, in terms of a small cluster of board members getting together and reaching out to principals. An email will do it and hear what the response is going to be. So any volunteers to work on this? Brian.
So yeah, I'd be interested in working on a process and an idea for us to appreciate staff. I'm not opposed to the idea that Eva's suggesting. I'm not quite sure I understand the connection, but I think that could be something we can work out and discuss further. So I'd be willing to work on that process.
Okay, all right. Anybody else?
I'm happy to.
Okay, thank you, Ruby. Kelly.
I just wanted to we do have some funding available every year to schools to help scholarship kids into camps. And most of the camps, if not all, are open right now for enrollment, and some are already at waitlisting time, and parents are sort of the spring scramble of like, what am I gonna get my kid in for the summer? I do it too. And so if there is going to be any funding available for that, I would urge it to happen quickly, just so that we can work as school teams to reach out to camps and see which kids might attend which camps, because it happens fast.
What does early May look like as a resolution date? It's getting pretty late at that point, isn't it?
It's sort of,
It's right on the
April's
cusp.
like the time
Yeah,
for,
okay.
like GMC is waitlist immediately. They open in February for,
Okay,
but
well, we next meet again April 30th.
Yeah.
That's my concern. And
Yeah.
it would have to wait until that time as an actionable item. So, I saw your hand, Eva. Did I see your hand again?
No.
I did not. Okay, all right. So, Brian, Ruby, can we get someone else on this, please?
Oh, I'd like.
See, I knew I saw
I would
your
like to.
hand. I knew it. Okay, I saw it, peripheral vision. Good, thank you very much. Okay, Brian, Ruby, and Eva, okay? Thank you. And so you will give us some feedback for April 30th meeting. Thanks. All right, end of year. So, letter D. Professional development is the next topic. Summary reports to the board. Do we want to open that up for discussion, please?
I have a question about it.
Yes.
So it looks to me, I'm gonna be completely honest, I did not pull up D2 professional development to read that policy, I'm so sorry. But is this coming up because within that D2 professional development policy, there is a reference to some cyclical reports that are supposed to be coming back?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Tim?
Yes, this emerged from the Policy and Amendments Committee. We were talking about D2. And D2, I'll read you the pertinent part. It says, the superintendent will report at least annually to the school board the effectiveness of staff professional development and the relationship to the student achievement goals identified within the annual action plan, which is the CIP, the Continuous Improvement Plan. So the discussion in policy was, well, throughout the year, throughout this calendar, professional development is brought up here and there. But is that the kind of report that the policy is calling for? Moreover, is that the kind of report that the board needs for oversight of professional development? There are the questions, for example, how much is spent on professional development overall per year? And Jody, Normandale question, what are the outcomes? Are we achieving the outcomes, not just in terms of satisfaction? Yeah, the teachers love that workshop, but what are the actual results? So those were the, I think that's the gist of the discussion and policy. Is that correct? Is that what you recall, Deborah?
Yes. What I also recall is whether we would like to hear about professional development as we hear about it now, which is throughout the year in terms of presentations that are coming from admin, or whether, or perhaps it's or, we would like to have all the possibilities of professional development clustered together so we can see what the full picture looks like. And
all the possibilities or all the things that they participated in?
I think it's right now, all the things they've participated in. That's my understanding.
And
Tim?
The teacher contract, correct me if I'm wrong, says that teachers are given 9 days per year for professional development, 4.5 days of which are for their own personal preparation, and 4.5 are for professional development activities. Is that correct?
I don't remember the exact wording, but
I think that's
along
correct.
those lines. I did actually bring references tonight
Okay.
of the
So
PD
it's-
schedule that we have been entertaining this school year.
Okay.
Not quite right. The 4.5, I think you're referring to some split, 50-50 split. That 50-50 split is only with respect to the initial days of professional development at the beginning of the year.
Okay, that helps a lot. So, but then if you look at all the policies, teachers are required to do quite a lot of professional development, to go to professional development for example, Act 1, Aaron's Law. It's a requirement that staff get training in sexual assault prevention. There's just a lot of required professional development, but then there's a lot of options. And is there a cohesive professional development plan, I guess is what I'm asking. And if there's cohesion to it, for example, the high school had PD and executive function. Well, how does that complement other professional development activities? So the kind of report that might benefit the board is an overall look at these are major goals, major activities in professional development. These are the costs. These were handled by an outside consultant. These were handled internally. Just an overview of what is staff getting in terms of professional development.
So what just went around the table is our PD calendar for this school year. First page is an overview of the days and the calendar. And then the following 2 pages, which are also in our toolkit on the website, are the various opportunities that we've offered professional development to our staff throughout the school year. Both in-house professional development opportunities and through some consultants as well.
So I have a question. As I look at the second page, and I look in the third column where it says when, and I look under letters, volume 1,
Yep.
LETRS, and I see all these dates down. Well, I would assume that means that faculty is divided into groups and meeting at these times.
So Brian Bittner is our literacy coach. He's a letters trainer,
Yeah.
and he offers this opportunity for 3 graduate credits. So teachers can sign up and use their professional development money to take this course, attain 3 credits for like $300. Super reasonable, and what a great opportunity for our teachers.
So then these dates are the times when the course meets.
Those are commitments
For
to
that 3
after
credit.
school time.
Got it. Thank you. Ruby, yes.
I appreciate this handout, and I feel confident because of many of the presentations we've had throughout the year that professional development's happening and it's going well. Like, it feels like that's a true statement. The thing that I feel like I'm missing is a real an overview analysis from Mark's level, from that vantage point, that reviews kind of like, how did it go, or this is the plan. And I actually feel like those words have come into this space before. I feel like there was some professional development thing that was district-wide that everyone came here and there was a theme. I remember that. I can't remember the theme. It was either I can't remember. There was something like that. But what I'm missing is having that in a real, like, a report form so that we as a board have a reference point that helps us to remind ourselves of what the theme is for the year, or what the focus has been, or what the success was of it. And that can then launch us into conversations around efficacy. And, like if we're doing DEI trainings, if that's our focus, how are we measuring what's the impact that we're having? How are students feeling? How are teachers feeling? What's the school climate, and how does that come back to it? I don't necessarily think there's always a straight line between, professional development and outcomes. But I certainly think that a good starting point in terms of improvement of the processes we have would be a more formal analysis report from the highest administrative level to look at how our professional development has unfolded or how it is unfolding, and help us as a board to understand that on an annual basis. And that, to me, that's what it seems like the policy is asking for.
So this reminds me of a conversation we had when we were at Dummerston, and it was the MLSS presentation. And there was also a conversation in this space. But one of the issues, and Bryn, you were pivotal in this conversation, is what do we mean when we say data? What do we mean? We seem too frequently to be talking at cross purposes in a meeting. And I think we're getting to that again. What do we need to see in terms of professional development? The whole thing links together, I do believe. It all hinges together. It all comes to some meaningful experience. And it might be helpful to see that pulled together. I think that's what the discussion point is at this point.
Certainly a major part of our continuous improvement plan is attaching professional development to school improvement. So we will be going through that process during the admin board retreat in June. We do have a committee that we're going to put together of some administrators and board leadership to develop that agenda, likely after April break at this point. Other systems I'd just like to point out in terms of a reference is every month when I send the school reports to the board, every month there's an overview of all the professional development that has been offered the previous month, both with special ed, curriculum office, and diversity. So we do have a history of reporting formally all of the PD offerings throughout the school year.
And what I'm hearing that's a little different right now is taking all of that reporting and pulling it together and seeing what does it look like as a whole. Not just listing the PD, but listing how it all hinges together.
Very multifaceted. Trying to wrap my head around how that would look in a presentation. Because there's also staff meetings, which are more informal than courses. There's so many levels of professional development layered into our system through our instructional coaches at the school-based level, coaching from central office. Bryn, I saw your hand go up there. Feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I was thinking about it a little bit in the sense of, and first of all, I just want to say I think it's great to collaborate and be in open communication about what's happening with PD. I almost see it as like the work that we do with professional development and all of these different layers in our system is similar to how a school operates. So the request is almost like, tell me everything that you do in a school for all of your kids and all of the diversity of your learners. So we're certainly happy to pull together reports, and I think depending on the complexity of that, that's also helpful to provide summaries and also time away from actually developing and delivering the professional development as well. So finding that just right balance to really meet the needs and understanding what the ask is. But I was just thinking about it in that same kind of metaphor of what we do with professional development for teachers and paras and principals across the district is kind of the same learning that happens in individual school buildings on the day-to-day.
Yes, I think this would be helpful for both board members and community members. A number of us are not in the school system. We've never been in the school system. We don't know what the possibilities are. We know it in broad strokes, broad vocabulary. But to see what a day looks like is invaluable. You know, to sort of walk in those shoes. All right, I see a couple of hands online. Ellen, I believe you were first, your name and your town, please.
Hi, can you see me and hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So this is actually Emily Marker. I live in Putney. I teach kindergarten at Academy School. It's my 15th or 16th year teaching there. And I was planning on commenting later when we talked about subs, but I feel like this is very relevant to the professional development conversation. And I really would like you guys to have a better sense of the reasons that we have the sub shortages that we do, aside from sicknesses. This year, our district has had 2 new literacy curriculums introduced, 1 new social emotional learning curriculum, and last year, a new math curriculum. All of my years teaching here, we've always had 2 full day grade level meetings a year. So across the district, all the kindergarten teachers get together for 2 days, and they're very important and rich conversations that we have. This year, we've had 5. Which is quite an increase. And at Academy School, a K through 6 school, that's 35 days of grade level meetings. Half of each of those days has been devoted to one of the new literacy curriculum, EL. And we prepare ourselves to go to these meetings. We write our sub-plans, we prepare our materials, and we are often being told either the night before or the morning of that there are not enough subs for us to attend our professional development, and that we should not actually go, that we should stay at our school. It's been suggested in some schools that teachers split the day. So one teacher would go in the morning, one would go in the afternoon. Only half of the day is about the EL curriculum. So that would mean one of those 2 people would miss it entirely. At some of the grade levels that I've talked to, their ASTs are invited. Some of them are not because there's not enough substitutes. And at my school, there's an academic support teacher for every grade, and they work hand in hand with the classroom teachers on this curriculum, but they're not able to attend these meetings because there aren't subs. So that means many of us are just missing out entirely on this professional development around this new curriculum, and we're still expected to teach it. And all of us, when we're there, are incredibly stressed. And we've talked about this at our meetings, what it means to not be in our classrooms and to know that our paraeducators, for example, are having to cover for the day. And it's really stressful to be responsible for teaching several new curricula without an adequate and meaningful approach to our professional development. In the district, there are other initiatives, professional development initiatives around the All Kids course, which has been 3 full days, and then mandatory special ed meetings. And again, at my school, on those days, on those 5 grade level meetings per grade, which is 35 days a school year, plus the All Kids courses, plus special ed meetings, I've been keeping track of attendance and sub coverage, and it often looks like a 50% sub coverage rate, with about sometimes 13 people out, with 5 or 6 of those with no substitutes. And that.
So Ellen, I'm just in the interest of time, I'm going to stop you right here. I think you've made really significant points, and you can chime in later on in this same meeting as we get to substitute teachers.
Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
When we've attended grade level meetings, we've been asked to give feedback. And so each meeting that we have attended, we've been provided slides with the data from that feedback. And I know you were just asking as a board, what is the takeaway, what, at least for the staff? And so I'm looking at, the last slides from our last meeting, and there were 7 of them provided to us. One of them is, I feel that I can meaningfully contribute during our professional development meetings. Half of the people said sometimes, half said usually. Some said, I leave our meetings feeling stretched or energized. 17% rarely. 33% usually. 50% sometimes. So we do our district has collected data from the staff about the takeaways from these professional development meetings.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you go, Ellen, I have a question for you. Is that data?
Emily.
I'm sorry, it's
Emily.
Emily.
My wife is- My wife is Ellen. She's also a teacher.
Sorry. I see Ellen on the screen, and I'm sorry about that, Emily. The data that you were just referring to about teacher satisfaction, is that data coming from Panorama?
No, my understanding, it's from the surveys that we're asked to take either while in attendance at the PD
Got it.
or at the end.
Okay,
And it's a Google form that produces pie charts like this.
all right.
You can see my computer screen or not, but
I could see it. Thank you. Thank you, Emily. Thank you. Robin, I saw your hand up, and now I don't.
Sorry, I'm having a lot of chaos in my house, so I'll send you guys an email.
Got it. Okay, thank you, Robin. Okay. Sorry for the chaos. Sean Murphy.
Just in terms of my job of timing, it's a little difficult if somebody, A, is a staff, and I feel like this is really important information to come to the board. So I let that run over.
Yes.
And I think that's appropriate.
I think it's appropriate as well.
Okay.
You could also do that little ping pong, because it just gives me an alert.
All right.
I mean, I looked at you and I could see you looking at me. Yes.
But I didn't want to interrupt.
But I do, it's hard to figure out when to cut someone off, and I didn't mean to cut off Emily, but I just, it's hard to figure that out, yes. We are talking about professional development. Do you have your hand up, Paul?
I do, but Ruby did first.
Ruby it is.
Well, I just wanted to, I really appreciate things I'm hearing Mark saying, Bryn saying, in terms of kind of what is the ask and what would that look like. I just want to clarify my own thinking around this is really, this board, I think we look to leadership in central office for that analysis piece. And sometimes that might mean taking raw data and giving it to us, but other times it's like you looking at the data, you looking at the impacts, and you looking at like, this was super successful, here's a point in which we could improve. And so, that point of like the substitute issue is actually having an impact on our professional development and how people experience it. That would be something, if you guys told us that, we would hear it, we would be hearing it, more proactively, and how can we as a board help to support that kind of thing. So from that perspective, that to me, although it could look many different ways, it's that your own words and your own analysis. It's not like what's everybody doing all the time. That's essentially what you've given us here is what happened, like what's the calendar of what we all did, but really like your high level thinking around what were the success points, how is this going? That's the piece that I think is missing from a kind of holistic global perspective.
Paul.
In the interest of perhaps, hopefully simplifying things, this actually came up, I believe, with respect to this policy at policy committee. 16 VSA 261A 5 clearly puts responsibility for oversight of professional development at the supervisory union level. That's the section on duties of supervisory unions. And I wonder if this conversation, great conversation, but I wonder if it's a little misplaced if in fact the SU board is the body responsible for oversight. Just a thought. And we keep running into that. This piece of who gets what piece of the pie.
Yeah. Who's on what side of this line? And it's a very gray line. I sort of err on the side that a big piece of this belongs with us. We have oversight over the 10 schools in our district, and Ruby.
This is actually a question. So that statute that Paul's citing, But there's also policy, and that's SD policy. So this is referential to the SD policy.
But those SD policies were taken whole cloth at the inception of the school district, of WSESD, and adopted. You'll notice all of the adoption dates are August 2019.
August 7.
Right?
2019.
But I think just to kind of highlight that is that the work of asking that question feels to me like a policy and amendment committee job. Whereas once we get to the level of discussing the impact of that, we currently have a policy, whether or not we should, or it should be an SU policy or a joint policy, whatever that is, that's a committee level question. But right now we have this policy, and so I feel like we're referencing that. Whether or not there is a question as to linking it to the statute is, I don't think that it's a useful use of our time in this meeting, personally.
I was trying to give you guys an out.
We don't want an out. Yes, there we go. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Yeah. So where do we stand right now? How do we want to handle this? We've had a little bit of discussion. It's 5 to 7. How do you want to handle this? Tim?
I'm leaning towards Ruby's contention that we have a policy, and our general interpretation of the policy is that it calls for an overview from the superintendent of PD, as Ruby so eloquently defined. So.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, sorry, I was thinking about next steps. Matt?
I'd like to suggest that the board kick this back to the policy committee for further discussion and clarification about, with a recommendation to the board, about what exactly we would want from administration as it pertains to the overview of PD, when we talk about the data, when we talk about the analysis of the data and the efficacy of our PD. I think we need to get really clear about what it is we're asking administration, what's the measuring tool we're going to be asking them to use. And so I would want to kick that back to the policy committee.
I'm not sure this belongs to a policy, quite frankly, but yes, Kim?
Yes, and I think we have to also decide if we're going to follow the statute or policy.
Statute or policy, right.
And
Tim?
The policy committee did exactly the opposite of what you're suggesting. We discussed it and said this needs discussion from the whole board.
Yeah. I mean, for 3 board members on policy to tackle this, I'm not really comfortable with that. And our perspective is something maybe a little different from what we're talking about right now. So I'm wondering if we could combine resources. I do believe there is a committee right now. Ruby, Matt, and Sean. Are you guys?
And Brian,
and
the Programmatic and Performance Equity Committee?
I'm thinking about looking at what we've done over the course of the year having to do with professional development to help students, to protect them. We've talked about that, to talk about not so much the presentations, but the nuts and bolts that have happened on the ground in the schools. Is there a group that's already considering that? And I think I named you correctly.
Are you talking about the Programmatic and Performance Equity Committee?
I don't know. Am I talking? No, I'm talking about Matt. Thank you.
I believe the chair is referencing the work that the 3 of us are doing with Mark around professional development and response to the community.
Got it.
But I don't know that fully encompasses what we're asking for within the policy that we're referencing.
But it does lead to a discussion about professional development across the board, doesn't it? In terms of the work that you're doing right now.
To be sure.
Because I think that's a big piece of this discussion. So do we want to leave it with the 3 of you now? You're working with Mark, I do believe. And let's see what comes out of that.
I would like to keep the focus on what we were tasked to do.
Okay. It's different?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It feels to me, and this has been something that I've felt for a while. It feels to me that there's a way, a global way in which we as a board really, you know, we have a policy and amendment committee. It is systematically trying to pick away and make sure things are current and cycle through policies. But when I look at our policies and I think about how does it articulate what our expectations are of administration in terms of hearing reporting, I don't feel like it's clear. And as someone who's worked a lot in policy governance work in other organizations, I feel like this is bigger than just this policy. And so I don't think it's something we can just tackle now. And I think we could Band-Aid it in different ways, but I think our board has an opportunity to really work with Mark, talk about what are our expectations, and then think more strategically about how they're articulated in policy. And that's a big project. That's like not a small, 3-person side project. It's a big one. So I'm just kind of calling that out as something I see. I think, we could continue as we go, kind of trying to analyze little things here and there. But I think this is, a big project we could have for some future in our, in a board retreat, things like that. I don't know that it's like for this next cycle necessarily.
Should we put this on hold for now? And,
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Eva?
So I have one question in regards to conferences and how does that fit into professional development?
Attending conferences?
Yeah, attending conferences. Because I'm very excited when I see the conference information in the warrants, and I do the research and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that they were in DC and they were learning about STEM, and so it's really, I think it's very exciting, and I think if we could include that information, I think not only it would be useful for me, but I think it'd be useful for the community. In regards to the professional development, how we move forward in getting the information, this is just my opinion. I would like to have more of a conversation with my superintendent. I think that this format, we have to have board meetings, but I would like to have, I think, every 2 months, having a meeting with just our superintendent, with the board, and he can go over all of the professional development, what the panorama, go over the details of what he sees. I think just hearing from him, I think that would answer a lot of my questions.
Tim?
I think what Eva is suggesting is a very good suggestion that's in the book that you shared with us, the governance core. The conversations with the superintendent in a much less formal way is one of the key recommendations in the book. I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Yes, Anne.
And how does that run up against open meeting law?
You can film it.
I'm clear from the Secretary of State, we actually are not required to let people participate in our meetings, but they are public meetings. They're school board meetings held in public, not public meetings.
I think it's a good admin retreat topic, admin board retreat topic, and we are gonna include the governance core as a central discussion to that meeting. So I think we can come out of that board retreat in June with some clarity around some of these ideas and expectations.
Okay, all right. So this I'm going to put on hold, and we'll take it up at the admin board retreat. Okay? All right. Now, the next point is discussion of the annual meeting and the IBRC report, and we are considerably behind time right now. And this is going to be a long discussion. I don't know whether the board wants to tackle this right now or put it on hold until the April 30th meeting. There are no presentations April 30th. I'm looking at the entire agenda. Ruby.
Could someone clarify what exactly this agenda item, what is the intention of the agenda item?
Yeah.
Tim?
Yeah, every year we have the annual meeting and this report is given to the population. This is a wonderful overview. I thank the administrators for the great overviews of their school year. And it gives us one of the few avenues to data, hard data, with all the caveats that standardized testing has. Paul has spoken very well about about how the data is used. But when reading this, I just have a lot of questions. For example, one of the state goals, as stated by the AOE, is to have all of the schools in Vermont achieving the 50% mark in proficiency, which is 1750, right up in the middle between 1500 and 2000. Having all the schools have all the schools with 50% of the students achieving at least 50% proficiency, if that's clear. So the big question for me is, should that be our goal too? Rather than looking at the average of all the sixth graders in the district, for example.
So can I put you on pause for 1 second?
Yeah.
Okay. Because at this point, I'm trying to figure out whether we're opening this up for discussion now, or we're going to hold this for the April 30th meeting.
Well, okay, let me just wrap it up by saying that two things I would like to come out of this. One is, is the presentation of data what the board needs and wants to do its work? Or are there different ways of presenting this data? And two, most important, how is the data used to make decisions? Is it when you see that a school is doing super well or a school is doing not so well in ELA in the sixth grade, for example, are we targeting resources to those problem areas, or are we looking at what's working so well in this other school? So how is the data used, and is the data presented in the way that we want? Those two.
So again, I think you've raised cogent points, but in order to deal with those issues, we need to delve into these pages in the, I'm trying to get my report out. So we're talking about this newsprint kind of annual report. That's what we're talking about right now. Okay, this report that we got. And the pages are listed
55 to 60.
55 to 60, and the report itself is linked in the agenda. So if you don't have that, the booklet, you can certainly, I like hard copy, but it certainly exists online and in the district office as a hard copy. I think this is a really involved conversation. And right now, it's listed for 20 minutes at this board meeting. It is now 10 past 7. That will place us at 7:30, and we have an admin report and more. I think we need, I recommend that we put this on hold.
Yeah, I appreciate your attending to the time, so thank you. And I'm fine with putting it off until the 30th.
All right.
Other members may
Okay.
disagree.
And admin are here on the 30th, is that correct? We just do not have a presentation. All right, I think that's a really good time to take a look at this.
Judy has a hand up.
Jody, yes.
I'm just wondering, I'm fine with your moving it to the 30th, but I would like to have more information than what that booklet shows. That booklet shows us as a district, if I'm not mistaken. And I've not been able to find any individual school information throughout the state or the AOE. So it would be really nice if we could have that information on the 30th. Thank you.
So that was a request to admin. Bryn.
I think a couple of pages further in the booklet, there is school by school breakout of proficiency rates for both ELA, math, and
Page
science.
59 and 60.
Pages 59 and 60. Okay, so we're putting this on hold until the 30th. Okay, thank you. Next item. Oh, other topics for discussion. Ruby, do you have anything you'd like to present?
I would, you remind me.
Okay, you notice that was the assumptive push in that moment. Okay, excuse me. How about the doodle? I'm going to present the doodle.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So
you.
I was, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I was supporting board leadership to put together a doodle poll that was trying to get at when we could have our board retreat, governance retreat. And I think that the date that was best suited everyone was May 3rd. So just kind of flagging that for board members in the room and for the public, that will, that is a retreat, and so it will be, it will not, I believe, it will not be recorded. We won't be, there will be no board work and decisions that come out of it. It's just working together in a retreat format. So I think that's from 5 to 9. It would be here, and
to be confirmed, the location, but it will be in an on-site school building. Don't quite know where.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Thank you. The other thing, and my stage whisper evaded you, we are going to be using Doodle more and more and more, especially, thank you, especially as we are looking to tighten up the timing on these meetings and move executive sessions from the rear end of a full board meeting to a different night where we do it, where it's only the executive session and we're doing it by Zoom. So we do have that set up for April 15 right now. Special meeting, executive session. It hasn't been warned yet, but it will be. So we are using Doodle a lot at this point, and there is a limit to your usage as a private citizen, isn't there?
right, and thank you for that reminder. So I have been in supporting the board in this way. I've been using the free Doodle account because I don't subscribe to Doodle. And so there are limits to how many options you can have, up to 20 dates within one cycle. And so I run into that all the time. The last few times I've run into 20. And so the question was really, we could subscribe to Doodle. It's I'm looking. $7? Yeah, about $7 a month, something like that. There's annually it would be something fairly reasonable, and so that would be something to consider in terms of an expense that we approve if we so desire. Some of you in the room who may be more knowledgeable in this, there might be a different platform or a different way. Doodle is kind of a standard that is people are familiar with, but there are others. Some of them are free, some of them are better than others. So, yeah.
So it annoys me when I want to Doodle and then I hear, well, I have to eliminate certain dates and leave them out because I've reached my count of numbers. So is it appropriate for there to be a motion to enable Ruby to contract for an account with Doodle? and it would be a year-by-year approval from the board. I think I say that only because we are here as board members, as elected board members. Any objection to something like that before a motion is, yes, Matt?
No objection, just discussion.
Yeah, discussion, yes. Well,
Certainly the user interface on Doodle is familiar to a lot of us and can be helpful. I think we could accomplish the same goal through a Google form.
there we go. Oh, okay, I see Matt and Ruby looking at each other from across the room very intently. Cannot miss that. Do you guys want to talk about that before we come back to this at the next board meeting?
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I don't think, I think that the interface and the platform with Doodle is specifically designed to see conflict, whereas a form requires analysis on the back end. So I don't know that we need to get into the weeds with this. I think that I wonder if there were, if one could make a motion that approves an expense with a caveat of, coming back if there's any discussion beyond, if Doodle is not the right way, and we can talk after.
Right.
I also think, we could decide to, subscribe to Doodle and change our mind in a month and a half. And it's not as if we lock in for life.
Okay. And?
Sorry, you cannot take an action without warning an action. However, I don't think we need to take an action on this just to spend $7 a month.
Got it. Okay.
That should come out of petty cash.
All right. So even though it says other topics for discussion, that's not.
No, it has to be more specific.
Geez, okay, all right, I was hoping to slip other things in there. All right, so Ruby, do you want to subscribe, please, and submit for reimbursement from the central office? Does that make sense?
It does.
It does.
Unless
When I work, I'll just work with Mo in central office in terms of figuring out a path forward.
She's great.
Great.
Yes, absolutely, and I'm all for getting an account.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, that resolves that.
I have another topic for discussion.
Yes, absolutely.
So I've had a lot of conversations with some committee members in regards to spending and also the information about where the warrants are placed and how to find them. One request is that within the agenda that when you are doing the first reading or second or third of the policy, you're able to see that within the agenda. I've been asked if there's a possibility that we could put the warrant that we are going to be approving within that agenda, that the community could click on that link, be able to download that, and while we are, saying yes to the budget, they're able to look at it within that day and be able to provide questions within that day versus trying to find a warrant and then posing a question weeks later about a question they have about, X amount of warrant on X amount of days.
Any comment on that?
May I ask a question?
Yeah, sure, Ruby, thank you.
Are the warrants publicly available on the website?
No, the warrants are distributed to the board members after they're processed. And you're talking about a lot of data. But that is the purpose of the Finance Committee, to review the warrants on behalf of the board, but the board has all of the warrants. And historically, the public's encouraged to join the Finance Committee meetings if they have questions, and we can respond to those questions. It's been a system in place for many years, and it's been pretty effective. But as Eva, I think you're saying folks are reaching out to you, and that has been the practice, which is to refer them to the Finance Committee, join the meeting, ask questions, and we can address.
May I?
So was there something else, Eva, that you were looking to clarify?
I think that what it is I think that, we've had people come in meetings and ask, repeated, like, where are the warrants and trying to find. And I think that one thing that's kind of, I would say maybe a little jarring is that when we're proving we're proving $1 million budgets, 300,000, like huge, large budgets, and people are like, I'd like to see what you're proving that day. Like, I want to see that. And I want to read that with you. And you get that, and I'm just letting you know what the community is asking me. It's not, they're saying, you get that 7 days ahead, or a week ahead, or 2 weeks ahead, or 3 days ahead. I want to see that, and I want to see what you're proving.
So are you saying that individuals want to see what's going to be approved before it's approved?
Mm-hmm.
Before it's approved?
Yeah.
So again, is what the purpose of the finance committee is, to go through that process.
I'm just conveying what the community has asked me.
So I have a clarifying question. At the point that we see the warrants, which amounts to accounts payable, I presume, those bills have already been paid. That's when we see them. Yes. Sean?
Yeah, every month, on the agenda, is written all the warrants for that month, including the payroll. So I go through them, not absolutely every one every time, but I certainly did this month. And I pick out items, and if you follow right down, you can see the amount. Everybody gets the warrants. You can see the amount. You can identify the site. You can identify all the information that needs to be identified, that particular amount of money, and then you can question it. You could email me with those questions, and then I will ask Frank. That's just what I did before the finance committee. These are all questions that I asked. Just a minute, let's say I've only been talking for 1 minute. So.
No, nobody's cutting you off.
Yeah.
Nobody's cutting you off.
I went through all these, and I made questions for Frank, and Frank highlighted every one, and he also gave a description of the code account, which is state mandated. Every school system in the whole state follows this same code. So it's just a matter of time. It's difficult, but I find I have a method. I go through the warrants as soon as I get the agenda. I don't do them before, then you can know exactly the warrants. You look, oops, wait a minute. Thank you.
I'm not laughing. Yes. Thank you, Sean. How does it feel? Because I'm not sure that what you're suggesting, what we need to see in terms of the warrants, is resolved in this way. Would you be willing to have a conversation with Sean to step through exactly what you want to see and why you want to see it?
Sure, and I just want to see Jody's hands.
No, I see that. Yeah. I see that, but I'm talking about this right now.
Yeah, I'm just conveying the information that was given to me. So, we'll proceed and see where we move forward on it.
So what I'm aware of as well is sometimes there's a large dollar amount, and we're given a broad statement about the category that it's in, or what the issue is.
Yeah.
But we actually don't see it broken down into the component parts. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that you and I were discussing earlier. So that's why I'm suggesting that maybe this is something. Are you on finance at this point?
I went to my
I know that. I saw you. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to be on it.
Okay. Could you so here's what my suggestion is: writing an email, somewhat detailed, to both Sean and Frank Rucker, so that this can be addressed. And I would just love to see how this conversation goes. So please copy me on it as well. All right. I feel like I'm missing something having to do with not being on finance anymore. Jody, I see your hand.
Yeah, you do see my hand. I'm getting a little confused with this because I'm looking at what Sean was pointing out and I'm looking at what I'm looking at here, which tells me absolutely nothing. And this is public information. And if Sean has a copy of what's behind warrant number 1321 for $56,765.64, if he has the copy of that, it must have come to him, or it must come to somebody online. What is the big deal about putting a link to what Sean appears to have on the agenda so that the rest of us can see what's going on? Do you all get more than this, or do you just get this? That's on your agenda.
I'm going to let Sean respond to that. Yes, Sean.
Yeah. All board members receive information from the central office on every warrant. And it's pages and pages and pages, as Frank just pointed out. So I just think that it should be available, but it can't be available to everybody, because how many board members actually go through all these warrants every month? So Tim, thank you, and Eva, and Kim. But it's, there are a lot of people that don't do it. It's laborious. But if you do, then you become familiar with the expenditures. Many of them are repeats. And it actually, if you look at these warrants, it gives you the description of the expenditures. So if you look at them long enough and hard enough, you can see that, okay, this is a repeat. Same thing went last month. Transportation, or you can look at transportation oops, I forgot to time myself. Transportation for every sporting event. It gives the dollar amount, it gives the which team it was, what site it was. So this is really a way to gain very close, sight of what financially what goes on to make up a $65 million budget. So thank you.
Can I respond? Have a follow-up question?
Absolutely, Jody.
I mean, I have been a board member in past life. I understand what Sean's telling me. I understand what we used to see, which was, a small one. It was just Dummerston. It wasn't everybody else. But I don't understand why, if it's already online for everybody, why it can't be online for the people who are interested in looking at it. And I, for one, am interested in looking at it. So maybe Sean could just send me what he gets, if that would be acceptable.
All right, so I'm going to recommend that both Sean and Frank make a note of this, and let's see where we go. Ruby.
I was just hoping that I could also kind of recommend that we move on in our agenda, but if someone within my community or at my leadership council came to me with this request, I would refer them to central office, because at this time they're not protected documents that won't be shared, but they are not up on central offices. They're not linkable. It's not quite the same as linking to policy or to agendas or minutes. And so because of that, that's what I would do. And I don't know, I'm sorry, Frank, that would mean directing people to you, and you don't have a lot of time. But I would rather do that than forward along something that was shared to me from central office. So it feels like that is the answer, acknowledging it. I appreciate Eva bringing it up, and Jody's words also. I think it is important, and it's so great that we have community members that are interested in going through super boring data. That's awesome. But I don't know that we need to talk about it anymore.
Right. Okay. So I'm Bethany, you put your hand out. So I'm going to move on. And I'm going to ask that Eva, you pursue this with Frank and Sean, and let's see what we can unravel. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
are we still on other topics?
Yes.
I have another topic that should have been in the professional development, but I'll bring it up. I'll try to make it very brief. We want to get feedback from the community. We want to listen to the community. So when they speak to us, I feel compelled to share it with the board. Stephen Dotson is the sustainability coordinator for the town of Brattleboro. He wrote to me and said, there's a terrific workshop on environmental education that's going to be held in Albany, New Hampshire, not New York, but Albany, New Hampshire. And he asked me, as one of his he's my constituent, to ask the board if they would support 2 or 3 staff members, teachers, going to this workshop where they would develop lesson plans and a strategy for teaching environmental education. With that thought in mind, I understand that the curriculum department is well aware of professional development opportunities, but this is one that community member sustainability coordinator is recommending. So if the administration feels that it's worthwhile, after looking into the workshop, which is sponsored by the Vermont Energy Education Program, as well as the New Hampshire Energy Education Program, if they would look into this, and if they feel that it's a nice opportunity, the deadline for applying is May 6th, then I would then propose that the board use its 1% funds, which we, according to the union contract, the board also has access to 1% funds for professional development, that I would suggest that we use those funds to support those professional development opportunities.
Yeah, I realize. Yeah. Ann.
That the board does not actually have 1% funds. 1% funds are comprised of 1% of the salary of all certified staff, and they're distributed to the schools by population. If our money was included in that, our share would be $720, and your workshop costs $1,000. We can come up with an idea, but other administrators have to approve it at their school level. And there might be funds elsewhere, but it can't come out of our we don't have 1% funds.
Can I put this on hold for a moment? The discussion about 1%. I don't think it's 7:35, a good time to go through the collective bargaining agreement. I think we need to do that.
No, I'm just going to refer anybody interested to check out item 25.4 in the booklet concerning 1% funding.
I know what it says, but I consulted about this already. We don't spend 1% funds. The 1% funds get spent in a way that teachers and their administrators choose to spend them. The board can come up with an idea, but we have to approve an idea, and we have to find teachers willing to participate, and in addition to the cost of the conference, we can cover their per diem, their FICA, all of that other stuff. And while I'm not objecting to sending people to the conference at all, I'm objecting to the idea of defunding the 1% funds, because they are extremely limited and we run out of them every year.
So it's a disagreement that perhaps can be resolved. So I think just close reading and maybe a little bit more research. But in the interim, Tim, would you send this information to Bryn as Director of Curriculum and Assessment? Is that correct?
Not yet, soon.
Oh, did I just goof? Not really.
No,
No, it was an announcement.
Still Paul.
It's been announced.
It's still Paul. Oh.
It's the,
Okay,
it's
no, absolutely.
If you want to forward it to me, I'm happy to
Wait
forward
one
it on the
second,
school sites.
I'm gonna clean up my act a little bit. Tim, would you send your information to Bryn Tucker as a curriculum coordinator? I'm gonna clean it up. To Paul Smith as a curriculum coordinator and to Mark Spino as superintendent. And let's hear what their feedback is about this program. If you could provide some feedback about this to Tim, and that would be great.
I will pass on the sustainability coordinator's request.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. If there are any other topics for discussion under board matters, please hold. I was about to say, please hold them. Sean.
Well, let's just follow up.
Go ahead.
I read
Wait 1
D2,
second.
professional development policy, and I believe that this kind of information should be forwarded to Mark. And then it's Mark's responsibility to do something with it. It doesn't have to go to anybody else.
And
It just goes to Mark.
This is a reminder to all of us as board members that if we have a comment to an administrator, that comment comes to the board chair. And the board chair then relays your comment to the administration, and that means Mark as well. So, chain of communication comes to the board chair. I'm not sure I really want to get all these emails, but that is how it works, and then I will immediately forward it. So Mark, with your permission this evening, since I've put my foot in my mouth a couple of times so far, is it permissible that Tim send this out, like a three-pronged approach at this point?
Yep, that would be great.
Okay, thank you very much. Good. We are now quite behind. But there have been a number of critical issues that have come up. So the administrative report, I would like to take a stretch break until 7:45. And so let's come back promptly at 7:45 and we go into the administrative report. It is 7:46 at this point, and I am reconvening the WSESD school board meeting. Every board member has, at this point, I just gave it out, the data that, thank you, Paul, for sending this to us. We requested looking at panorama data before it will actually be presented, before it's codified by the different schools, put into a summary document. So this is the data. I asked central office to provide a hard copy. I like spreading things out and seeing it and annotating it. You can't quite do that online. That's what you have in front of you. Thank you. This is an admin presentation, May 14. So this gives us plenty of time to look at this. All right, if you have any questions about this, just see me privately and we'll address them. Okay, so admin report, it is, all right. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you for your patience.
So I think we're gonna start from the bottom up on that list. There's
Yes,
visitors
that
here
sounds
tonight.
great.
So Deb Gass, Julianne Egan, and Kelly Diaz are going to speak to family engagement and examples of wraparound services that we offer our families at our various schools. So I think Deb is going to kick us off.
Actually, I'm going to defer to Katie Everest, who is our family services manager.
Super.
She's trying to boot
And
off
my
battery
computer,
went down.
no, the battery did not go dead.
I think we're offline. Oh no, we're back.
Oh, here we go. So just bear with me for 1 second.
presentation is on our website. It's on our website. We want to pull it up. Yep. It's on the website, on the reports to the board.
In the agendas or on the
reports to the board.
So Deborah, as we take a pause here,
Yes.
should I just bounce the ball in a half hour? That's what's written on
You
the,
bounce the ball in a half hour, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So
and then the rest of this agenda
so
we
let's keep
are
that in mind,
ripping through.
you know, and parcel it out. I mean, I
Thank you
don't
very
want to cut people off, but after a half an hour, then the ball will bounce.
And that will,
20 minutes.
actually,
And I
thank
have
you,
started time,
thank you.
yeah.
Sean,
Yes.
let's do a bounce at 20, 15. 15 is too soon.
Yeah.
Okay, we've just conferred, 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
20 minutes it is,
Sure.
yes.
And then we know
Okay.
we have another time.
And, and we may have to cut you off. We may, unfortunately, just because it's a packed agenda, more packed than I knew it was gonna be packed, but yes. Okay.
So I'm going to just start really quickly and remind you all that Early Education Services is under the arm of the Windham Southeast School District. We are your Head Start and Parent-Child Center for this community. And we have a very comprehensive approach to providing services, not the least of which is our family support services, and Katie is the manager. So she's going to talk to you about what we do.
Yes, I am. Thank you. So every family at Early Education Services gets a family support specialist. Everything we do is parent engagement focused. And so a quick overview is for family engagement. All families at EES receive support from our nurses, our fatherhood specialists, our oral health specialists, the family support staff, our behavior support staff, and our nutritionists. Our health staff starts working with families before they are enrolled to ensure each child has a medical and dental home and is up to date on immunizations and well child visits. We start that process as soon as we meet with the family and know that they're going to enroll with us in order to support them and get them on the right track. We offer monthly dental clinics for children that have not yet been seen at a dental office. And every child receives a nutrition assessment, and our nutritionist is available to assist with any dietary concerns. Our family support staff. Every family has a family support specialist to provide connections to any community resources the family may need in order to become self-sufficient. Our fatherhood specialist supports fathers with their goals and to be involved in our program, and we also have weekly fatherhood meetings, and it's called our Dedicated Dads program. Family engagement activities. This is just a very quick snapshot. We have a policy council, which is made up of 50% parents and 51% parents, 50% community members. We have parent committees. Every one of our child care sites has a parent committee that involves, we do activities, we talk about different things that are going on in the classrooms. Parents can bring up any issues they may have, and it's just a good way. It's kind of like a PTA, but it is just like a PTA, yes. We offer all year long parenting support workshops. We do the Nurturing Parenting program. We have something called Harmony in the Home. This month we're offering a healthy homes and to I'm trying to think of the name of it, but to help with lead, just to kind of check your house for lead, those sorts of things. We do budgeting workshops. About every month we have some sort of parenting support workshop. We have play groups. We have fatherhood groups, and every classroom has parent volunteers, and there's all kinds of volunteer opportunities for parents to come into our program and just do anything from helping out with lunch to helping out with different activities that we're doing, or just playing on the playground. And that really is a very quick snapshot of what is much more involved.
And the philosophy behind all of this, especially the Head Start philosophy, is that we are preparing parents to become involved in the program and at the policy council level, so that in turn, when they come to the schools, when they reach the public school age levels, they'll be ready to engage in all of these kinds of activities. And we have had past policy council members here as board members as well. And we do the cross-pollination, so that helps a lot because you send a rep to our policy council. So then they develop a rapport and an understanding of what happens at the board meetings.
Another thing we do with all families is support them in transitions. Every transition in our program, whether it's from early Head Start to Head Start, and right now this time of year it's helping with kindergarten transition. So we meet with every single family and talk about what to expect when your child goes to kindergarten, the differences between our programs and the public schools. And so we really do wrap around every family and support them in anything they need.
Including housing support. We have a housing specialist who is working exclusively with families who are in need of stable housing.
Terrific. Thank you for sharing. Very impressive.
Okay, here we are at Academy. This is just some pictures of some of the things that we'll talk about. We've got literacy breakfast up on the left upper corner. We've got a New Year's Eve ball that our art teacher made with some kids that was dropped at the Heart Rose Club this year. Trunk or treat, and some students making Valentines for Pine Heights. So if we go to the next, Paul, first just like to highlight our PTO. It's really become a robust part of our community over the past year and a half, largely in thanks to a couple of really key parents and community members that devote a lot of time to bringing engagement to our kids and to the greater community. A lot of our events are open to the public, which is really important to us because it draws people of all ages to the schools and gives them something to do that's really exciting. So trunk or treat, we've had some dances. We have a kids craft fair coming up on May 11th, which is open to any child in the area, and they register as vendors. We've done it last spring, and then in the fall we did it also. So kids are making things, and we do give them time at school to create things to sell as well if they don't have supplies at home, which is really fun. We did a movie night recently. We had over 80 families come. That was really a great turnout. We've done bingo nights, family fun night in June. Just opportunities to get together and bond as a community that are fun. We also did a family tech talk with some internet experts last year, which was really valuable. They talked a lot about the dangers of social media and YouTube and what kids are seeing on TikTok and some of the things that trickle their way into our school every day. And some opportunities for new kindergartners to meet each other and parents to meet each other, as well as winter sports. So thank you to our PTO. We're very grateful for you all. We have two family liaisons. They are our social worker, Joni Matulke, and our counselor, Anna Ocasio. And they are just phenomenal. It's hard to sum up what they do on one slide, but some of the things that they do are provide winter wear for every kid that needs it. They sent out a survey asking families what they need. And then with grant money through our district and with fundraising, they are able to purchase or find winter wear for every child that needs it, which is no small feat. And then it's set up like a store in our gymnasium so people can come and shop for what they want, so they can pick out something instead of just getting, the one thing in their size, which feels like a really nice equalizer and opportunity. We send home Friday backpack snacks like many of our schools do through the Vermont Food Bank. We're up to about 90 kids that receive food for the weekend, every weekend. Holding events like literacy breakfasts and coffee with the counselors where they can mingle and ask questions about the school, get to know each other. We do have it's called the Share Shed at Academy, and that is through a textile company where clothes are donated, and then we actually make a small profit based on the weight of clothing that's collected each month. And we use that money to support the community back toward things like winter wear, glasses, things that kids need. And we also host a Veggie Van Go monthly at Academy School, which has a really great turnout. And lastly, this is a really exciting program. If we want to go to the next one, Paul, thanks, sorry. We were approached about doing the school to dentist program, and one of our nurses, Nurse Amy Major, has really gotten on board and is really passionate about getting dental care to all of our kids. And we have a lot of students who are coming to the US as newcomers who haven't received dental care at all in their life, so there's some pretty extensive dental needs coming in the door, as well as kids who have grown up here. So right now we've got over 30 students that have received dental care that since in the past year. Most kids are eligible, and one of the goals, aside from getting the dental care, is also to build a partnership with the families and build that comfort level. A lot of parents have had bad experiences at dentists, so having a school staff there to help facilitate that communication, making the appointments, and then getting to know what is it like to go to the dentist regularly has been really successful. And then they can go to follow-up appointments on their own with their kids after, or we can continue to take them if they need us to. So, and that happens during the school day, and they go and then they come back and they're done. So it's been a pretty neat thing. Sorry, I do have one more thing. This is my favorite thing that I did with my COVID money, which is now locally funded. As a principal, we get a lot of things in our mailbox with really neat events all the time, like, hey, let's do an assembly. And it's hard to find time to plan all of those things, field trips. So we have an outreach coordinator. It's a stipended position, and this person has two main functions. One is to bring kids out into the greater community on field trips, and the second is to bring the community to Academy School. So this is a list of all of the places that we've partnered with so far in the past couple of years for field trips and other assemblies and things that we've done. So it's something that I've never had so many field trip forms in my mailbox to sign. It's just really exciting that our kids are getting out and then they're getting to know what is going on in the community and seeing things that they might not experience otherwise. So bringing engagement.
Thank you, Kelly, for sharing.
Yeah.
Before we continue, Matt?
This is fantastic. I love the dental, bringing the dentist to the school. That's really good best practice in the field. I saw on the slide that it's available to any student that's insured. Are there any students that you're aware of that are either underinsured or uninsured that have been unable to access this program?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're gonna shift to Dumbarton School.
Great.
Julianne is here.
Sure, thanks everybody. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about kind of our framework for family engagement. We talk a lot about the idea in all our schools that everyone at our schools is positioned as a learner, right? And we know that as learners, we all need, we want fun, we want relationship, we want a sense of autonomy, we want to feel challenged. We want to feel like people really know us and we're part of a community. And so that same spirit, that we want to bring to our work with children, we want to bring to our work with each other as staff, and also, of course, to our work with families, because that's why we're all here together, and we know that's what makes people want to be, want to engage. So I was going to just talk a little, briefly about how we've tried to structure that and create some routines and rituals at Dumbarton School that can assure that happens. In the next slide, of course, we have our leadership council. And one of the things we focused on in the last few years is establishing also a family involvement team. So, back before COVID, we had a small but mighty PTFO. And COVID happened, and then the Leadership Council actually had met before the end of COVID, and so the Leadership Council kind of morphed into a PTFO / council / umbrella to everything. And then during that time too, we thought about, while we were, in the midst of COVID, how can we really make sure though that we have people engaged? Maybe you don't want to be in the Leadership Council, but we really want to have like a group of people who can give us, who can really let us know what's going on for each class, or people we can really reach out to who will be representatives for families. And so we started slowly establishing a family involvement team, which has a representative or more, one or more from each class. And so those two, I know we've talked a lot at the board level about like, what is an Leadership Council? What's a PTFO? What's the difference? It's sort of evolved at Dummerston School in a way that feels like it's coming together. The Leadership Council, when we came together in the fall of 2019, it was with the goal of being action-oriented, to act as a liaison to the board. The Leadership Council was really the engine for our playground and outdoor learning space renovation project. We have 15 members on our council now with 6 staff, and we're in a new round of goal setting right now. The family involvement team has a goal of increasing a sense of community and connection among family, staff, and community members, and provide support for families and staff. And the idea is that the family involvement team can really bring the energy around, some of the learning, the Leadership Council goals. Family involvement team meets with me and whoever else would like to come, but it's during the school day, like in the morning, we sit down and we have coffee together and hash out, our month's plans. So in the next slide, you can kind of get a sense. This is actually kind of on the agenda for Thursday night's meetings. We were working on goal setting. It's really hard to do because there are so many goals, right, that we are always working on in schools. Mm-hmm. We were just talking about many of them tonight, and it's really hard to narrow our focus, but we are trying to make this team of people action-oriented and really harness the expertise that people are bringing to the table. So we did a process of looking at what are our opportunities, what are the challenges we're seeing at the school, and what would we like to select as our 1 or 2 big ideas that we as a council really want to focus on. Not to say that those other goals aren't important or that we're not working on them also, but just what are the ones we really want to focus on. And as I mentioned, we did that with our outdoor renovation project, and it was just really one of the most energizing community projects I've ever worked on. So you can just get a sense this was one idea that we had to try to rein in, which should we choose? There's 5 different goals that came out of our conversation there, and tomorrow, Thursday, we're going to try to narrow it down to 2. Meanwhile, the family involvement team, in the next slide, some of the things they've been working on, they were really instrumental in getting our winter sports program off the ground again after COVID. Playground work parties. We've been doing the last couple of years family nights, which are just the main intent of those nights is to have fun. Yep. So pumpkin walk night, concert dance. We're having a dance next month. Movie night. We did have an educational night around bringing middle schoolers together to watch Screenagers with their families. This team is also doing staff appreciation, monthly breakfasts and, teacher appreciation day, staff appreciation days. The idea with having a representative for each class is that person can play the role of welcoming new families, really trying to make sure people feel included, making sure that people are getting messages, and promoting community within each classroom. So that's kind of what the structure of family engagement looks like. I did put a couple of slides with pictures. it's a topic for another night. But one of these, one of the things I think exemplifies our approach to family engagement is our student-led conferences, which are pre-K to 8. And I had started student-led conferences. I dipped my toe in at BAMS when I worked at BAMS, and have seen the Dummerston staff approach student-led conferences in a way that has just blown me away, just with what the Dummerston School staff does with this model. I could talk for 6 hours about it, but a different night, with those staff coming to tell you themselves, because what they've done with this model is really inspiring and is really grounded in the idea of families as partners and students as learners, leading us in our conversations about their learning. So I will just leave it at that, because that just happened a couple weeks ago. It was really thrilling. So yeah, thank you, everybody.
Any questions or comments for our presenters?
Ruby.
I just briefly, Julianne. So is the family involvement team, is that in place of a PTO, or do you, so that
We don't have it. Yeah.
Okay. I was just a question.
Yeah.
All the presentations were fantastic. Thank you to all of you.
So family engagement is a major priority for the school district. We talk about it often at admin meetings, especially coming out of COVID. We want to get families back into the routine of being comfortable in their schools. So I wanted to provide this opportunity to highlight some examples of things that are happening in the school district.
Thank you for these presentations. Thank you. Very informative. Thanks.
Going through the list, I can give an update on Kuzmeskus, our bus company. We've had some recent turnover in the local office. They've given us enough notice for Kuzmeskus to plan around that. So we do have 3 new people starting up in the office next Monday, and they are internal candidates from the company, so they know how to do the roles they're going to be asked to do. So I will pass around for the board just an update of the job descriptions and the folks who will be taking that over starting on Monday. And that is Tanya Newton, Transportation Coordinator, Charity Noyes, Second Transportation Coordinator, and Jonathan Harris, Operations Management.
So just clarification, these are employees who are hired by Kuzmeskus?
Correct.
Not by the district?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you, can I ask questions
Sure.
at this point about Kuzmeskus? Do you have a sense of why individuals stepped away from Kuzmeskus?
Other opportunities that they pursued and have landed other jobs.
Okay, all right, so just coincidental that there was seemingly a lot of people leaving?
Yeah,
Okay.
Frank, myself, and Miss Mo met with corporate last week. They presented their plan, their transition plan, and we felt really good about that meeting and the folks who would be taking over some of these leadership positions. So,
Thank you.
expecting a seamless transition.
Any questions about this before we move on?
Lastly, with the substitute shortage on the agenda again, I just wanted to give an update on some figures. This school year, we have hired 41 new substitutes who are currently on the sub list, and we have 35 candidates who are in process to be added to the list and are going through the background check process. So within this school year, we'll have added 76 substitutes to our list, which is close to doubling our list. So we're in good position there. Speaking to Emily, what she was talking about this earlier, excuse me, in the meeting, yeah, that is a challenge, and how to balance professional development in the school, out of the school, how to support that. We've spent significant time at admin meetings going through protocols and analyzing how to be better about that. I handed out a New York Times article, I think the last meeting or 2 meetings prior, and essentially sharing the challenge that all schools in our country are facing right now around sub shortages, but also more opportunities to cover and more leaves of absence that has been prevalent in our school district, which Emily referenced, as well as nationwide. So we've done a lot of work, still plenty of work to do, and it will continue to be a topic that we talk about at the admin level. Julianne has actually led that protocol for us the past 2 months. So that's the update.
I'm aware from friends who are teaching, the burnout rate is terrific. And a lot of young people in their late 20s are actually leaving teaching, maybe teaching for a couple of years, and that's always difficult. You know, it's a series of dress rehearsals until it just warms up, and you begin to love what you're doing. But people are leaving the profession, unfortunately. Ruby.
First, Paul, if there's somebody who needs to be admitted, I'm not sure.
Oh, thank you.
Mark, I guess I'm wondering, for a district of this size, you had some numbers of how many people are on the roster, how many people are coming into the roster. Do you have a goal in terms of how many subs we want on a roster for this size district?
Right now, we have about a 70% fill rate. We'd like to get to 100%. So we're just continuing to pursue more and more subs and continue to analyze the data.
Can I ask you for clarity on that? So when you say we have a 70% fill rate, do you mean when we have a certain number of openings for substitutes and only 70% of the time they're filled?
Yes.
So in terms of who we're turning to fill that, is, you know, we didn't have a deep enough roster. At what point, do we have a goal by which, you know, we want to have 150 people on our sub list? Or is it really just going as we go until we reach 100%?
I think continue to advertise and analyze the data on a month-to-month basis.
Okay. Kim.
Well, I know some of the challenges Mark probably faces. You get a lot of college students when they're on break, just because my sons have done substituting, and you only have them for a certain period of time before they go back to school for a few months.
Yeah.
I've heard concerns from teachers as well, and I want to know if we're working on a para or a special ed sub list as well, because
Oh yeah.
that's
Custodians,
a problem.
crossing guards, paras, nurses, the whole gambit.
So as a follow-up to Anne, this 76 added this year, does that include paras and it includes everyone?
Yeah.
Right, throughout the system, okay. Ellen, Emily, I see your hand, just bear with me 1 second, I'm just gonna call on board members. Eva.
Oh.
Eva.
Okay. So one of the things that that's impacting it is gentrification. It's not a matter of if, it's already here, especially in Brattleboro. And as the housing gets sold to people, you know, with really high incomes, you know, over 200,000, they require the services. They need teachers and nurses and paras. Those people need to have a place to live. They can't find a place to live. And I know when when I worked at when I used to work retail, I also did some substitute as well. But it was like I had the lifestyle and the luxury to do that because my cost of living was low. But if I have to have, you know, 2 jobs to make ends meet, you can't take, you know, a Wednesday to be a substitute if you need that full-time job. Nobody's gonna understand. Workers aren't gonna understand that. So it's like finding people who have that luxury to be able to have the flexibility to be a sub.
For sure.
You know, and I think we want to have a full staff, but you have to look at the reality of the situation and understand that Mark and everybody is really doing the best they can. We're so excited to have our new HR director, and the Grow Together program that has been amazing. I mean, it launched. I don't even think it's been a year before it started to launch. But talking to the legislators, they're like, yeah. And the demand, the pent up demand, it's every day. People are showing up. I mean, with the eclipse, I remember driving and I was like, oh my God, all these people are gonna wanna buy a house up here. Like, I was like, you know, and it's the pent up demand, it's really hard because that divide, it's getting bigger and bigger. So I know we're trying, and you know, we'll just keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I think balancing professional development and supporting staff with time out of the classroom is certainly an equation we need to continue to evaluate. But it's not the only reason why staff are out of the building. Not professional development.
So, Emily, thank you for your patience.
Yes, the 70% fill rate information, I'm confident is not actually a complete picture, because as I said before, I started tracking the absences at my school because of the extent of the impact that they were having on our students and their learning. And I noticed that academic support teachers and special educators did not have any sub coverage. And when I spoke to them, they told me that the online system that we use to request a sub for any absence, professional development, sick, personal time, gave them a message, no sub needed. And I actually looked at this with them and saw it many different times with many different employees. And I brought that to my principal's attention, and she reached out to central office. And as of March 4th, that was fixed. But it's important to note that since the beginning of the school year until March 4th, not a single special educator or academic support teacher in my building had a sub. So the 70% fill rate doesn't actually include the people who weren't even allowed to ask for a sub. I went further and checked with staff in other buildings and learned that this was not the case necessarily in every building. And I sent an email to central office to bring it to their attention as well, because I don't know if it was just an issue at Academy or in others, but it is certainly, you know, those people, the special educators and our academic support teachers, work with some of our neediest students. And when they're not there, there's not a sub option even.
Yeah, the intent, Emily, is to honor every request that we can. Thank you for bringing that to our attention when you did.
Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns?
Past 30 minutes for this block.
Thank you.
As information, the presentation took exactly 20. So.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's great. Okay, I want to stay on substitute. It's on the agenda. And I just really want to honor this on the agenda. Other questions, concerns? Ruby.
I guess because it does feel like we have to move on, and I do think that this is a really important issue. I think we're hearing a very strong voice, particularly from the Dummerston community, and also from educators at a number of schools. I think we should really just keep this on our radar and continue to ask for updates and with a hope to see responsiveness and the impact that the growing of that roster is having. I really love to and I encourage teachers. I appreciate hearing Emily's voice, and I feel like we've heard Ellen's before as well. I love hearing them. I'm not in the classroom, and so it's nice to hear that. It'd be great to even hear others, and I think it's important for the board to hear it, but also, I'm sure that they're vocalizing these things to Mark directly, but they can voice it publicly in this forum, and I think that that's helpful. So I would just recommend that we kind of just ask periodically for an update and see where we're at, not keep our eye off this ball.
Yeah, and I want to say, if you send an email to me, I will forward it and circulate it across the entire board immediately. So be assured of that. And that keeps the board honest and not distracted. No, well, not distracted. Nothing is a distraction. It's all critical, but
I hope the board, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I hope the board sees the proactive steps that we've been taking for a number of years now.
Yes, absolutely. And at
If
the
there's
same
ideas that we're not hitting on, we'll take them.
Yeah, right, okay. So, I think these are great steps. I hear the agony as I sit in a leadership council meeting of teachers spread thin and key support teachers being taken out of their support role 100% because now they're the covering kindergarten teacher. So, yes, the district has made serious headway. And at the same time, we need to make sure that community voices coming out of our individual schools are heard and acknowledged in this space. So I really want to do that. Matt.
Yeah, on the shortage of substitute teachers, I think part and parcel of it is continuing to take a look at our attrition and turnover rate, either on a quarterly or annual basis, and just tracking that. So that would be something I would encourage the board. I would be curious about, and I would encourage the board to be curious as well.
I do know that many months ago, this is before Michael Kelleher arrived, there was some talk about exit interviews. And exit interviews were not being done. And the paper that was, it just was not taking place. So I don't know what the status is, but I think exit interviews are critical. It gives a sense of the health of the institution, why people are leaving. And of course, those interviews need to be done carefully. This is a close-knit community with relatives in the school system, so you want to, well, you know what to do. I mean, you just want to set up some penalty-free environment where people feel safe to speak their minds.
You want to learn.
Yes, that's right. That's what we need to learn, yes. Any other concerns? We're staying on substitute? Okay, we will return to this as we need to keep this on the board radar. You're absolutely right. The next segment under administrative report is admin board retreat. The date, the location, the agenda.
Well, the agenda's to be determined still. But I did meet with the board leadership team. We reflected on last year's experience at the Hermitage and felt like they supported our needs very well. So I asked the team for permission for Ms. Moe to research what was available. The Hermitage is available on June 18th. So that's where we are potentially going to have our retreat on June 18th. And what we focused on was the needs for the retreat. So we're looking for like a nice outdoor space, conference room with air conditioning, and the ability to serve meals. Because this is a full day experience, breakfast through early evening. So that was the context in terms of how we picked the location.
Tim.
Who is on the leadership team?
So for that meeting, it was myself, Deborah, Ann. Matt, were you there for that? No.
I was there.
Oh, Ken, okay.
Okay, well, all of us have heard from at least one community member objecting to the cost of having a retreat at the retreat. And there's been other alternatives proffered, like SIT, Winston Browdy, other locations that are now not only less expensive, but more convenient, saving 2 hours round trip and travel time. But the big issue, I think, is what we learned at the town meeting, that there's a lot of poor people hurting, and their taxes are gonna go up, property taxes are gonna go up. And it just sends the wrong message, I think, from this board. I think the message from this board is we are fiscally responsible, and this year, more than ever, we have to attend to austerity. And I think I agree with community members who say that having it local not only helps local, but you get the same results. If it were at SIT or Winston Prouty or the Marlboro Center downtown, you would still have rich engagement of board and admin, but without the cost and the optics of having it at a golf course. It doesn't really ring well to me either. I don't know how other board members feel.
Sean?
I think perhaps what could be done would be to look at the expense of the Hermitage and then look at the expense of alternatives, and just make the determination, not necessarily on the least expensive, but the best venue that would fit everything. And I
think that's the key, the venue that fits the needs for high outcomes.
But what we should know is the cost.
Yeah.
I think last year, maybe you have those figures even.
It was,
Yes.
it was close, if I'm correct, it was close to 27,000 for all 3 retreats.
So if we just stay with the Hermitage.
Oh, with the Hermitage.
With the Hermitage.
Yeah.
So what I have is just under 5,400, 5,400. I'm sorry.
Is there somebody?
Oh, okay.
No, I made someone, sorry.
Okay, so just to talk apples to apples, the Hermitage from last year, the Hermitage
I thought
this
you were
year.
asking for, because we had the 3 retreats, we had.
We had 3
We
retreats.
had board and admin, then we had the admin retreat, and then we had the board retreat. So I'm combining them all together. But for the Hermitage, what you have there is.
Yeah.
I would like to say that someone called me and said, nothing personal, it's business. So I think the review is not on one particular retreat. They're looking at the board, the admin, all of the spending overall. And the community members would like to see a reduction in the spending. But most importantly, they want to keep it local because the businesses are suffering. We have so many wonderful places, Winston Prouty, the retreat. We have a lot of really beautiful places in our areas that, could use that influx of money. So what people are asking is, can we keep it local? Can we support our economy locally? And we need it more than ever. As we've already talked about gentrification, we've talked about the poverty that's happening, because that divide, it's getting wider and wider. So I think to have that relationship with the community who's really, this is not surprising that after the tax, what happened with the debacle with our taxes, that people are looking at what we're spending a lot more closely now. So I think in order to have that relationship with the community, I would vote to have it local. We can have a really nice, we can have a very similar setup and support a local business. I would go even far to support a marginalized, an LGBTQ or BIPOC, somebody to provide our food if possible. But that would be the superintendent's job. I'm just throwing it out there. But I think it would, like Tim said, it would send a message that we understand, and we understand that they're hurting right now.
other board members at this table? Ruby?
I tend to agree with it. I have a desire to keep spending around retreats as local as possible. The one piece that I would point out from the figures that we've seen in the past related to the expenses for the retreats, I don't feel like I saw any that accurately reflected the travel expenses. And I know for the Hermitage, I was in a car with four other board members. So we carpooled, but someone must have submitted, reimbursements, and that wasn't reflected. And so if we're really thinking about this question of how much does something cost, I think including that transportation cost is important. I also remember from the conversation that I don't know that we ever really completely finished it, but when we first started looking at the data, there is a way in which some of the people in the room were SU and some were SD, and so it was hard to wrap your head around what the real expenses were. And what I can say, my own experience at the Hermitage, it was a very enjoyable place. It didn't feel so extravagantly lush that I felt like, oh my God, what are we doing here? But it's fancier than going to SIT or Winston Crowder or something like that. But for all of the reasons that have already been said about supporting local and staying local, but also just for me personally, I would prefer not to spend 2 hours of travel time, because that's what it was.
Tim?
There's one more issue about talking about costs. For a facilitator, $2,500 to me, just to be quite frank, seems exorbitant for a facilitator to work, 6 or 7 hours. At least a bigger question, which I hope that the board can address someday. How much do we pay consultants? How do we determine how much to pay consultants? Do we have a cap? That's a larger question, but specific to this issue, I just think that a facilitation fee of $2,500 that we paid last year is just too high.
I think a facilitator's incredibly important for a board admin retreat.
And the board had an admin retreat with a great facilitator who did it for free. Well, $1,000 donation.
Yes.
Bethany.
Yes, I realize. Bethany? Your name and your town, please.
Hello, sorry, I had to unmute myself. I'm Bethany Granquist, and I am the parent of Brattleboro students. I am really appreciating this conversation, and I actually want to say thank you to Tim for starting I raised my hand right before Tim started to speak and brought up the idea of the retreat. So just want to thank Tim for bringing up the question of expense. I am just curious if somebody could explain to me the logic. I'm not one of the community members who has previously spoken on this, but I'm concerned about it. But I'm wondering if somebody can explain to me the logic of why we would need to use any location other than the multiple buildings that the school district owns. I'm aware maybe they don't have AC, but we ask our students to sit in very hot classrooms in June, August, and September. And I don't understand why we wouldn't maybe use any of the elementary schools, the central office area, the high school, BAMS, any of those, which wouldn't have any expense associated with them because we own them. And also, is there not a career center program for hospitality? And would it not be something really cool to ask those students who need experience in catering to perhaps look at actually encouraging them to do catering work for any of these retreats so that they're getting the experience and we're doing more support of what we're wanting, which is to help students gain experience? I'm always curious when we opt to go anywhere, not that I don't want to support local businesses, but why are we choosing to go anywhere when a retreat could happen in a building that we own, which then wouldn't be any additional cost other than electricity? Thank you.
Thank you, Bethany. Thank you.
I would just say I think we're looking for a professional experience with a professional environment, with a place that can support the needs of a positive outcomes of the retreat. And it's hard enough to build the agenda so that we have a great retreat, but then all of the little details that go into supporting that day, it is helpful to go to a resort or go to a place that supports that type of outcome and work.
Could I ask a follow-up?
Yes, Bethany.
Do our schools not support a positive learning and experience, a positive learning location and experience? Because if so, then I guess that would be a concern about why are we asking students to have their learning and education and community building and and any type of experience in the schools if our board and directors and and everybody else, like, I guess I feel like if my high schooler can't enjoy going to the Hermitage for science class, like if you're saying that you need to go someplace that's a more positive experience, what's wrong with the school buildings that are not offering a positive experience? Like, I don't understand why it's okay for paying to go someplace and using this expense when you're already putting our students in a situation that I believe is a positive experience. So why is it different to use the space for adults than it is to do that for students? I don't know if I'm phrasing that correctly, but I don't understand the reasoning.
So I see a couple of hands online, and I just want to say, as an educator, it is always helpful, and this is true for anyone in the business world, when you're doing some kind of an assessment, to leave the space where you normally work and to be in some other kind of environment. So there is that would say, let's take it out of school buildings. But there's another piece that has come up in this conversation, and that is, what about using a local site? What about supporting local industry rather than going to a high-end, Hermitage is a high-end resort. So why not look for venues here in our community? And I don't think we're doing that. So there's that piece, but I think there is value in getting off-site and not even being in someone else's school, because it still keeps your head in all the things that you need to do. All right. Ooh, I don't know why I clicked on her. I'm so sorry, I'm doing the wrong thing. Jody, please announce your name and town, please.
Jody Normando from Dummerston. I just want to second what Bethany has said, and several people have commented to us and to me, and I'm sure Bethany and maybe other board members about these cost of retreats. I know, we're not a bank that pays for their employees to go on a retreat. I was and my husband were part of a realtors retreats, but the realtors always paid their own way for a retreat. So I think the school, we have so much poverty in this area that I just think it sends the wrong message, a very wrong message that administrators and boards are having expensive retreats. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Carrie, I saw your hand up 2 seconds ago. It's not up anymore.
Oh, can you hear me?
We can.
All right. So I do understand the hesitation to go outside of a school district. I'll keep this short. I also understand as a school board member, if you're in a school you are very critical. And that's not what you should be doing at a board retreat. You should be focused on your work. I like the idea of a middle ground. Can we find a space that is not a school site where we are focused on our work, but it is affordable? I think that's really key, that we are focused on our work and not looking around going, oh, hey, we're at a school district site, and how come they do it this way, and how come they do it that way? Let's keep the focus on the work. I think that's doable. So thank you.
Paul, we have someone in the waiting room, I believe. Yeah. Other comment?
Yeah.
Tim?
I'd like to make a motion that the board request the administration to seek local alternative venues, as well as to look into less expensive facilitators for the admin board retreat.
Second.
Discussion.
You use the term look into though, not, we're not directing you to do anything particular.
To present to the board alternatives.
Yeah, that's looking, that's not like, go ahead and book it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, okay.
And just for clarification as well, we're talking about look into it for the June 18 retreat.
Right.
So this one coming up. Discussion. Kim?
Has Mo reserved anything yet? Put down any deposits or, okay.
No deposits, but they can accommodate us.
Okay.
Matt?
I think it's a good idea to do this. I would want the board administration the board to be mindful of timing too. As we get closer and closer, places will likely book up. So I hope this would be on the agenda for next time.
And as well, we're talking about June, which is a very tricky month in terms of events. Well, the next board meeting is the 30th, April 30th. So that's getting late, I think, in terms of booking space. Brian?
One thing about this motion, it sounds to me like it assumes that 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 due diligence hasn't been done, that research hasn't been done already about what the best place would be. So that's one thing that concerns me a little bit. What you shared, Mark, makes me think that you probably have done the due diligence and that there are some reasons that you chose this place that we haven't heard yet. And it also assumes, of course, that all the other places we've talked about in the local community are available and willing, and so that's also part of the research that I guess is part of this motion. The other thing that strikes me is that in terms of where it's done is really dependent on what we're trying to do, because has been said, I'll say a little bit differently, what has been said already is that the space is part of what we do together, as well as how we do things together and what we do. The space is a piece of that helps us conduct the business that we want to do and achieve the goal that we have. So wherever we go and whatever we do has to be tied with what we're doing and why we're doing it, what our goal and objective for the retreat is. So we're assuming that we already know what that goal of the retreat is and that it fits with the location. So that's something that needs to be considered altogether.
I hear a number of issues. I hear Bethany and I hear Jody very strongly, as well as Eva, saying, gee, how are we spending money? We just came out of a school district town meeting, where we have no idea what the taxation rate is going to be. There is the potential of a 2% freeze that is being asked of every school site. That's a lot. We're looking at how we're spending money. We just had a discussion about teacher appreciation. I know that the board looks to do its retreats on site at an existing building. Now, the board is small, it's 10. As soon as we include we've got to find if we're gonna look locally, we've got to find a site that's big enough. The thing that I think about at the Hermitage, we all stayed in that central room. We didn't use any breakout rooms. We didn't break up into small groups last year, if I remember correctly. It was just what was being presented. We worked at our round tables individually, but so I'm just thinking about the visual and what the Hermitage does for us. It's very pretty. Beautiful outdoor dining space. But we have some lovely places here. And I think, I think, to go to Brian's point, we should do due diligence, and we should look at places here. And it would be nice to hear some kind of a report back about size, about possibility, about what the pro is, what the con is of a given site. This is a board admin retreat. I don't know, I'd like to set a model for the next set of retreats coming up. Next step, please, next steps. Matt.
Madam Chair, I have a motion, I believe was seconded.
Yes, yeah. So thank you very much for that reminder, I needed that. Discussion, any more discussion on the motion?
I'd just like to add,
Eva, yes.
I'd like to add that this is coming from our community. I've been voted in, I'm a representative of the merge for all the schools, but I am representative of the taxpayer. So when people call me and they are talking about these and having demands, I do have to bring it to the board. No matter how uncomfortable it is, no matter, because it's hard, because it's like, I don't want people to. We had such a great conversation last week, and now here I am. But they call me, and they say, this is what I want you to present at your meeting. So, and if I don't do it, I'm going to be called tomorrow. So, and I answer my phone calls. I talk to people. I enjoy talking to folks. Sometimes late at night, but I'm also a night owl. But this is coming from the taxpayer, and what happened legislatively has freaked a lot of people out, and they're scared. And you might look at it and go, well, this is it's like too much, but it's like people have a visceral reaction to the numbers and how they feel. It's valid, and we have to recognize how they feel, and we have to make compromises. And this would be a compromise, and I think it would be a good compromise. That's it.
So there is a motion on the table right now. If there is no further discussion, I don't see any hands up. I see no one on my screen. Tracy, could you read that motion back, please?
I believe that it was. A motion was made to have the board request the administrators to present alternatives for a less expensive local alternative for the June 18th retreat.
Okay, and it's been seconded.
Including presenter.
I'm sorry, say it again?
Including, the moderator.
Yep, the facilitator.
Facilitator.
Okay. If there is no further discussion, I'm bringing it to a vote at this point. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any abstentions or nays? Okay, so presented. That's for administration to come back to us with some alternative sites. April 30th?
Yeah.
April 30th?
Sure.
Okay. Just wait 1 second. Carrie?
I would just ask that whatever you do is sent down to the Vernon board so that we have a voice in this as well.
Vernon, yes. Okay, it will go to the Vernon board as well. This, I presume, has not come up for discussion at the Vernon board. That was a question, Carrie.
No.
No, it has not.
I think we had a quick discussion around it and we were fine with what you had already discussed.
Okay.
So if you change it, please let us know. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, yes, Tim.
Could we have the information before the meeting on the 30th so we can consider it?
Yeah. I'm gonna ask you to work on this tomorrow.
Okay,
Sure.
all right.
Then would you like the board to send a recommendation?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, so if the board is sending a recommendation, can the board,
Through the chair.
I'm sorry?
Through you.
Sure, by all means copy me or however you do it, that's fine. But what I was going to say is instead of just throwing out the name of a location, could that board member actually make a phone call and see if that location is available, what the cost what might be, even though Mo would have to do that, but it would just begin to, we'd then know whether it's a possibility or not. All right? Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna move on. Fiscal report, there is no fiscal report this evening. And so we're up to Ruby.
There were some hiring recommendations via email.
Hiring recommendations,
There were
thank you.
four that.
Yes,
Yes, one
thank
came
you.
over late.
Oh, I didn't see the fourth one. Okay, but hiring. Thank you. Okay, Mark, thank you.
Yes. Emily Walsh, grade 1 teacher at Putney. Paige Starkweather, grade 3 teacher at Academy. Chelsea Parzik, Academy kindergarten teacher. Allison Taverna, academic support, UHS. And then I have 2 resignations after you vote on that.
All right. So is there a motion to approve these 4 hires that Mark just named?
So moved.
Thank you. Any discussion? I'm sorry?
Seconded.
Seconded. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or nays? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 resignations. Chris Day has decided to resign and not come back to us from his leave. And unfortunately, Tracy Lane has found an administrative job in her hometown. So she'll be leaving us. So we have an advertisement up and running, and we're looking for an assistant principal.
All right, so the motion is to accept with regret the resignations of Chris Day and, with regret, the resignation of Tracy Lane.
So moved with regret.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor accepting these resignations, please signify by saying aye.
Aye with regret.
Any abstentions or negatives? All right. Is there anything else, Mark, coming?
No.
At your end, all right. So, moving on to consent decree, consent agenda. Approval of minutes, March 26th. Motion to approve minutes, March 26th.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any negatives or abstentions? All right. Warrants and payrolls. Motion to approve the following warrants. Warrant of March 11, 2024 in the amount of $70,478. Warrants of March 18, 2024 in the amount of $261,434.14.
$834.
Did I? $834.14. All right. Okay. Warrants in the amount of, warrants, no, that's great. I transposed. Warrants of March 25, 2024 in the amount of $421,401.41. And warrants of April 1st, 2024 in the amount of $1,405,405.96.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any negatives or abstentions? All right, and now we're doing payrolls. Payroll of March 8, 2024. And again, this is a motion for approval. $1,569,871.26. And payrolls of March 22, 2024 in the amount of $1,690,796.71.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstention? All right, thank you very much. We are up to public comment on non-agenda items. And I just want to introduce this by saying this is a time for us to listen and to take notes. If needed or appropriate, the board and administration will work on next steps. So we are here to listen and to take notes. Bethany, your name and your town, please.
Hello again, Bethany Ranquist, parents of a BUHS student. I don't think that I have anything that's super argumentative for this. Yay, you're welcome. I just wanted to make you aware of two things. One, the board website, I believe since the update that the website has gone through, is not very user-friendly for finding things like the agenda, which then has the Zoom link. It used to be at least a little easier to find agendas and minutes, but it's a lot of links of a lot of different things now that are just kind of in a straight line going down. It's not easy to navigate. So I just wanted to say that so that it's out there. And the other thing that I think is a bigger issue that I am very concerned about, and I know it's not just me that's concerned, is there was some type of upgrade or change or something to the WSESD VT email system, because there is a very high rate of emails that do not go through when being sent from an outside email address to WSESD VT addresses. And so it's quite often that emails are not going where they need to go, or they get caught in some type of quarantine or behind a firewall or something. And my concern with that is if we're trying to contact one of our students' educators, or if people are trying to email the board or anybody within WSESD VT and it's not getting there, it means that like any of our information that we're trying to contact about is via a pretty primary form of communication these days is not being received in either at all or in a timely manner. And that concerns me for two things. One, it's important that information is able to be sent via parents and different organizations to members of the school district. It also, in your defense, concerns me that if somebody emails the board and they don't get a response because it gets caught in quarantine, you're probably going to have a lot of really grumpy constituents only as a result of a firewall or quarantine system or something. So I'm really hoping that that can get looked at and figured out, because it is not conducive to a daily business practice for a really big organization.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Jody.
Jody Normido, Dummerston. I spoke at the annual meeting saying that I would support the budget, but that I had questions in areas that I thought could be either cut out or lowered. These would be items that I feel do not directly affect students, and the money planned for them would be better put to use for the students. The following are just my opinions. On that letter, I had 3 different paragraphs or whatever. One was athletics, one was negotiations, and one was retreats. I will not speak to the negotiations or the retreats because I've already spoken on that. I want to add to my athletics that looking at supplying equipment and how that goes, whether you supply equipment for the sports or whether the sporties or whatever you call them have their own supplies, equipment. I've also questioned the transportation on that. I also want to say that I appreciate the athletic director has a very difficult job. I think Chris is doing better at equity than other past athletic directors are, and he is very, very responsive to me. The one main concern out of the paragraph that I sent you on the letter, I will repeat, there's an awful lot of time away from schoolwork. And I wish the Vermont Principals Association would do something about it and have weekends rather than have the kids missing days because they have to travel all the way up to Burlington, etc. So thank you for listening. And I hope you all received my letter and it was done in good faith. It's not done with any, I don't want to pick anybody out or pick on anybody, but I do think, as I said before, there's so much poverty in this district that we really have to look at our expenses. And I hope that this board does. It sounds like they're thinking about it. So very good. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to offer public comment on non-agenda items? So I'm going to ask one more time, is there anyone else who would like to offer public comment on non-agenda items? All right, with that in mind, moving on, we're going to move on to new business. And the Policy and Amendment Committee is presenting for a first read B1, Board Member Education, D1, Personnel Recruitment, Selection, Appointment, and Background Checks, and D2, Professional Development. This is for a 10-day warning period, and it'll come up again on April 30th for a second read. So those are the 3 policies. Please take a look at them, and just to remind everyone, the revisions are attached to the agenda. That's where the link is for the revisions. What's on the website are the policies as they exist right now. Moving on to unfinished business, policy and amendment presents the following for a second read. E6, emergency closings. E7, safety and security of school facilities. E8, tobacco, nicotine prohibition. F12, transportation. G14, animal dissection. And G15, Title I, comparability policy. Again, that's presented as a second reading, and it will come up on April 30th for readoption if there is no comment, email, concern about it coming from community, coming from board members, coming from admin. And this is an actionable item coming up requiring a motion. The following for readoption. F22, student assessment. G1, curriculum development and coordination. And H2, family engagement policy, formerly known as parental involvement policy. Is there a motion for readoption of those three policies, F22, G1, and H2?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? Sean.
Yeah, I just read them. I read all these policies, not in tremendous detail, but I did read them all. And I was just impressed with the care that they've all been put together. And I was also impressed with the fact that these policies really are just highlighting things that I'm sure are existing in this district already. And it's not rocket science. And most of the policies, people would just automatically, as kind educators, follow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We work very hard in that committee, for sure. So now, oh yes, thank you. We need to vote. Thank you. On the motion for readoption of these three policies. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or negatives? Okay, so passed. Thank you very much. We are now ready to go into executive session. And is there a motion to find that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or person involved at a substantial disadvantage?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or negatives? Thank you.
May I ask for the record what the general topic is?
The general topic is, the finding is a situation involving the discipline of students. And so I move, or is there a motion to enter executive session under 1 VSA 313A7, the academic records or suspension or discipline of students?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any negatives or abstentions? All right. I'm sorry, yes, let me finish this up by saying we are inviting into this executive session Mark Spino, Michael Kelleher, Keith Lyman, and Kate Margaritis. Thank you.
And there will be any
And there will be no action following this.